It's so easy to feel overwhelmed right now because of all the information that we get delivered through social media as well as the mainstream media. The news is on 24/7 on the news channels, and depending on which ones you watch, well, it's basically all propaganda. I'll forgive GB News a little bit because they do cover topics that the others don't touch, but they could do more, and they don't. And the way they cover the American elections, very biased. It's not reality. It's never been neck and neck, just like it was never neck and neck with Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson. What I'm doing this video for today, I think it's important, rather than being overwhelmed with bish bash bosh coming at you from different directions, note that everything that you can see is irrational. The way they handle farming, banking, property, landlords, the way they handle employment, the way they give rises to civil servants and the NHS, people who work for the government, and then make it tougher for people who don't work for the government to survive. Because obviously every time you make it difficult for a business, you make it difficult for that business's employees. So it affects everybody down the food chain. And what we've got to recognise is every single thing that's happening that you're thinking, my God, the world's on its end, is connected. Every single thing, from the Black Lives Matter demonstrations to the trans movement to the way fringe elements are not just supported but promoted, trans issues in school, teaching them about that before they even teach them how to run a bank account, how to survive in the world once they leave school. Not everybody's got intelligent parents to fall back on. In fact, most people don't. Most people just have busy parents to fall back on who haven't got the time to tell them how to run a life, and therefore they go out into the world making mistakes, and it is really a mistake when you have kids you can't afford to keep, because who suffers? The child suffers, and then it becomes a burden on the state, and the state basically takes the role of the husband, really, in a lot of households, because nobody's educating people that the best grounding is really the family unit. And that's the most critical thing that they want to break up. The European Union are renowned for it. And unfortunately, the European Union is the European arm of the globalist movement. Now, in an ideal world, if you're one of the extremely well-off people, billionaires, the people that make a lot of money out of the minions, the people that made money during lockdown when you got crushed, when your social life and your family life and your earning capacity got crushed because you weren't a key worker. The key worker is the one that's putting food on the table, whatever job you're doing. So if you're one of them, one of me, my neck of the woods, then it's easy to forget that it's all done by design. That we're being funneled into an easy to control world with future generations so mixed from all over the world that they won't have any allegiance to any countries, let alone family life, and they won't kick up a fuss when unsuitable legislation is unfolded on them. That's what it's all about. It does have a name. The initials are CK. You'll know what it is. Coudenhove-Kalergi Plan. It's been in play for a number of decades. Jean Monnet was one of the founders of it. It's particularly pertaining to Europe, but it's happening across the world. And obviously a big impact on how this goes will be the US elections. Again, purveyed by the media as neck and neck. But it's not what I'm seeing when I go on some of these American accounts. And I've got a friend who works quite closely with the Trump campaign. And, if you talk to Mitch Feierstein, who's worked as an advisor, former Goldman Sachs, very savvy. They used to, fly in by private jet to go and talk to clients. The trouble is, he's our side of the fence. He's not a globalist, and he thinks we should be treated better. And he wrote a book called Planet Ponzi about 10 years ago, like a clairvoyant. He just basically said what's going to happen since the crash, and how they've never done anything to repair anything. They haven't put anything in place since the last crash. We've not had any contingencies to make it not happen again. And people think, it's a stock market crash, it doesn't affect you, but it does, because that's the kind of stuff that inflates prices. That's why we're living in such an expensive time of our life. So it's all connected. Everything from pushing the trans issue, you push the trans issue, gay rights. I am absolutely, people should be treated equally. And if you're a man that lives with another man or two women and you've decided to marry or buy a house together, you should be entitled to the same benefits of that investment as a heterosexual couple. That goes without saying. But unfortunately, the movement, and a lot of it's gay people who tell me this, has been pushed to almost a fringe element where these weirdos are coming out now, dressed in, dog collars and going to, drag queens going to school to do story time. This is like a bridge too far for many people, and hopefully the ones that are watching this, because, drag queens were a form of fun, like a pantomime dame, ridiculous clothing, full well that they're not women, and they're camp and humorous. And obviously drag queens were usually more adult humour in the nightclubs of Britain, or even Lily Savage. I mean, I thought Paul, what's he called? I can't remember his name now. He played Lily Savage. I thought he was Paul O'Grady. I thought he was fantastic, funny, acid wit. Great. Even had his wig even had roots coming through it. Blonde with roots coming through. I always thought that was a really classic touch. But he would come on dressed up like real fabulous, fantastic clothes on, but never changed his voice from his own voice. That was the funny thing. He just stayed normal and very cutting. I love that character. But it's a character, isn't it? It's a farcical character. But now they're trying to make this kind of thing mainstream for the kids, so that they get used to this change, this shift in family living. And, the Daily Mail report again that a man's had a baby. That's the Daily Mail putting it across like that. I think a woman's hung on to her womb long enough to continue to have a baby while she lives as a man. It's a choice. It's not a biological fact. And that's the bit, this is the gaslighting, when they try and make you believe it's a fact. And the media are as guilty as anybody, because of course, think of it from the media point of view, that's going to get more talk about it. If they wind you up by saying a man's had a baby, people are going, it can't happen, it will happen, defend it, criticise it, whichever side of the fence you sit on. But if they told the truth, a woman living as a man has finally, after several miscarriages, had a baby. That's the reality of it. It's a choice thing rather than an actual fact. I mean, good grief. If you ring the BBC, I almost did it as a bit of a joke actually. I ring the BBC to complain quite a bit. I'm always complaining to them. But what I did, halfway through the complaint, I said, I don't know what we're going to do about this, it's 12 o'clock. She said, what do you mean it's 12 o'clock? I said, I changed gender at 12, I'm male after 12. She went, right, that's no problem, we can continue filling it in. And I said, right. And then she was stuck then, because she said she didn't know how to fill it in with the first part of the question, the stuff I was filling in. Was a female, and maybe we should do it all as a male. I said, no, that wouldn't suit, because I rang in the morning. I was just, I was pulling a plonker, wasn't I? She didn't know how to handle it. But on a serious note, this is all done to diminish society, to make it more, everything that's happening is to make it more controllable. They want more and more control. Elon Musk has stood up at a Trump rally and said there's over 450, I think it is, government agencies in America. He said, why do you need 450 government agencies? Why do you need 100? You've got a government. Why do you need all these other agencies? And it's the way we've got in Britain. If you think you've got quangos, they call them quangos, Tony Blair set them up. You've got the Electoral Commission, you've got DEFRA. These are government agencies where they're superfluous to the government. But they have power. Ofcom, how much power has Ofcom got? They've just fined GB News £100,000. Who says? Where do they get this power from? And this power is being subcontracted. The world's worst for subcontracting power is the WHO, World Health Organization. I mean, The Mafia did a better job of covering up their source of income, basically funded by China and Bill Gates in the main, and obviously other countries like us. We kind of contribute. But the thing is, who is the who at the end of the day? Who appointed them? You know, Tedros saying is in the next round, the next time, they've got to get a grip of the anti-vaxxers. So, living proof is those that chose not to join in the rollout, like myself, are still sat here. I didn't kill anyone and I didn't get sick. So where am I the threat? Clearly not. And if the drugs that you're purveying to us are so fantastic, why are you worried? I use the analogy that if you have a holiday to the Far East and you have your yellow fever injection to stop getting bitten by a mosquito that transmits yellow fever, you don't jump off the plane still worried about getting bitten by a mosquito. You get off the plane confident that if you get bitten, you've taken your precaution that you've been instructed to do to travel to that country, and you proceed with your holiday. Oh no, that's all changed now. They've now created a fear society that even if you've had that, you have to worry about people who haven't had it, you know, and it's so human to human transmission. And I know there's a lot of people don't believe in viruses actually exist, but that's an argument for another time, and it's not something I know anything about. So we'll just take it on face value. And what I'm saying is control, control, control. If the first port of call for control is your parents. You're being brought up by them. They feed you, they change you, you know, you're nappy. I don't mean for another kid. They nurture you. And if they're any good at it, you turn out all right. And then they hand that nurturing over to school. They're supposed to teach you subjects, make sure you don't get bullied. And now they have pastoral advice in school. So that's another section where it's subcontracted. It's control again, pastoral advice. Now that all depends on the viewpoint of the pastoral advisor, because you know a lot of them these days in school are not what I think are suitable to be in the role because of the choices they've made in their own life. And as we witness this control that we've innocently let go of, you know, there's a reason why that phrase is the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Because that you're controlling the thought process of the future generation. So if you're handing it over to a childminder very early on because needs must, because you've got, you know, you need 2 wages coming in, or you're handing it over to a childminder because you can't be asked to bring your own kid up because it's actually quite a lot of it is mundane and boring, whatever your reason is, you're handing over the most precious thing that you've probably created on the planet. I mean, not everybody has nice kids, but what I'm saying is this control, we've got used to delegating. You know, what's the first thing you do when something goes wrong? Why aren't the roads repaired? Oh, it's the government, it's the local government, it's the council. All these control elements, the councils, the non-government organisations, the quangos, this is all, we've so many controls. And yet, you know, the 10 Commandments are the basics of a decent life, aren't they? They're the basics. Like, you don't get much simpler than that. You know, God in the sky, who some people now say is a black woman. What's that about? Who cares? If you believe in God, he's just God, indeed. You have to have a format. Comes up with 10 Commandments via, was it Moses? I think it was Moses. I get mixed up with all characters in Bible. I didn't pay attention. I was nicking off. I was working in a pub. So he comes out with 10 Commandments, easy to follow. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. It couldn't get any simpler, could it? But we've got laws and bylaws and I see a legal system that's now set up to almost allow you to do them all. Because if you've got a criminal justice system that's jailing people for something they typed out online on a mobile phone, they haven't gone anywhere, they've gone to bed that night. You know, Lucy Letby will have been enraged when she made her tweet, but gone to bed, not gone to a riot, not gone to join in, bashing people up, nothing like that. Gone to bed. Thought better of it probably the second day as she's calmed down. Oh no, no second chance. let's get hold of you and let's deny you bail. This is a young woman with no criminal record, done nothing wrong, hasn't caused any public harm to anybody. Banged up. And yet the same judges that handle these sentences can look at a paedophile and not jail him for looking at child porn, and not jail him for stalking a schoolgirl, different cases, because they think he'd struggle in jail. Oh boy, would he struggle in jail. And guess what? Half the public want him to. We want him to struggle in jail because we don't think he's part of society. Anybody that preys on kids, you prey on kids and animals, you're sunk because they can't fight back. Animals can't even bloody tell you. So you look at society and the way we set it up, we've managed to create through bureaucracy, that's laws, legislation, governments and non-government organisations, a society where basically, if you look at it, every single, I'm not a religious nutcase, I'm not going to be at your door in the next 2 weeks with a bloody big Bible under my arm. We've managed to create a society that can basically dismantle the 10 Commandments. Think about it, read through them, have a read through them. We've now got a society that can dismantle the lot. So when I see people like Calvin Robinson saying that Christianity needs to come back, I don't think it's necessarily that you're going to go out to church and worship a God. You don't have to believe that. But I think what he's talking about is Christian values, because Christian values are basically the 10 Commandments, aren't they? Unfolding in other ways of life. And we've managed to create a society, you have a look at it, we've created a society that's dismantled the 10 Commandments. It's unbelievable when you look at it. So we've gone right through there, haven't we? I don't like to stick to one topic, but I think it's important to understand that every single thing, click, 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 men in, trans men in women's sports, they go into women's sports when they've been average at the sport that they do because they want to win. And they're going to win because they're taller and stronger, they've got more testosterone. It's unfair. It's nothing to do with being anti-trans. It's cheating. It's cheating. And the other thing I've noted with the trans movement, and maybe it's only the ones that get the publicity, which the papers love, of course, because it's clickbait, it gets more readership, gets more comments, it gets them more revenue from their advertisers. It's all connected. But the trans movement, what I found, especially with trans men, people who want to go and be men, they always want to go and be in the mainstream media, broadcasters, the arts, acting, advertising. I never see any of them say, I want to be a brickie, I'd like to be a hog carrier, I want to be a plumber, I'd like to work in a foundry, I want to be a scaffolder, I'd like to work in the steel industry, like we've got one. You don't see them wanting to do any shitty jobs, like go to sea, go out to sea in a trawler from Fleetwood or wherever you're based, and put up with severe gales, freezing cold conditions, getting wet through, rolling about in your bunk when you're not actually stood on deck trying to haul fish in. I don't see them wanting to do any jobs like that. They always mamsy-pamsy jobs like, social media commentators and writing, which is a damn sight easier than being a proper bloody fella, isn't it? Because when there were 2 roadmen working outside my house digging it up, coming up to Christmas with a burst water main, I'm there with bath filled and loads of pans with water. So I took them a brew out, you know how you do. And I looked down that hole and it was freezing with snow on the ground. And this poor sod's there, up to his thighs in wet, damp mud. And below that it was like, it had to dig through frozen ground, sorting this water main out. He'd been at it for hours. So I took him a brew out and a couple of bacon sandwiches. And I said, blokes really get crap jobs, don't they? Blokes get up. Dave gets all crap jobs in our house. Absolutely. I don't do crap jobs. I never go to the bin. Dave takes all stuff to the bin. I don't go and clear our gutters. Dave does that. He does all donkey work like that. And you never see, you see him on these bloody Twitter videos pretending to have period pains. When they go trans, whichever way they do it, they don't take on board any of the responsibilities that sex has carried for generations, like women do. And to see them in trans men in women's sports, I just think it's abhorrent. because it's cheating, not because I'm against anybody wanting to live like that. You should be able to live your own life, providing that you're not affecting others. And I'm sorry, but turning up for a race or a football match where you're head and shoulders above the other team members, or, you know, winning beauty contests when you're overweight and not very pretty, it's not fair. It's not that I'm being awful. It's not fair to the girls that have put the effort in, is it? The ones that have stayed slim and not eaten, you know, gone jogging, kept their looks, got up early, put a lot of time into the grooming, and then you're going to get pipped at the post because it's politically correct to vote for something that is not as nice as you. It's just gone, the world's gone mad. And it's every single thing's connected, from how they're treating farmers, how they're taxing inheritance tax, what they're doing with businesses. And the only people that seem to be cushioned at the moment, if you work in public services, like civil service, NHS. And it's just important to know it's all connected, because that way you won't be overfaced thinking, what's the world coming? It's just all a master plan. It's just all coming together. But it's doomed to fail. It's doomed to fail because as these plans unfold and reality's hitting home, that's why blue chip companies are walking away from diversity, equity and inclusion. And what do they call it? Silicon Valley. They're not introducing it next year. Because quite clearly you should be employing people in your company, no matter how big or small you are, because you can do the job. Not because you fit a stereotype. You look at these chief constables that we've got, the Merseyside one. She fits a tick box to me. I don't know what her career's been like, but there's a lot of, you know, Cressida Dick. What's that about? So you've got to look, as long as you recognise it's all connected, you won't be overfaced by what you see, because you'll just say, oh, that's just another part of the plan. And when you see it like that, you've only to look at how this government's affecting people. It's turning so many people against them, the people that they rely on to put them there. So I think, you know, the next 4 years is going to be a very telling time. I don't even know if they'll keep Keir Starmer at the helm, but then again, where's Street in for a replacement, really? Have you seen some of his tweets? I mean, he'd like to throw, I can't remember the woman's name, he'd like to throw under a bus. He tweets worse than me, and I'm bad enough. You can't have that running your country, can you? So what have you got to choose from in the talent? Not the Deputy Prime Minister, that's for sure. Can you believe it? I mean, I feel like looking at the world like this. What's going on? So don't get down about it. It's just all one thing happening to us from different directions.